coffee shop in a city, which is every coffee shop in every city on a day, which is every day. Hello, friends, and welcome to the 35th episode of Barista Unfiltered, a podcast dedicated to the life and times of baristas. They tell us what's brewing in their lives and work in this free-flowing and unfiltered podcast. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
And we're your hosts, and we're so glad you've joined us today. Today, our guest is Kristi Persinger. Am I saying that right? Persinger?
Yeah, that's me.
So we want to welcome you to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us. This is kind of a reboot. Our last episode was recorded January 2010, before pandemic times. And then here we are, like 9 months into pandemic, and this is just going to be a blast hearing all about your experiences. A lot of our listeners know about the Otis coffee shop that is located in Lafayette, Colorado. It's my personal favorite. And Kristi is working there now. So we always start our shows by asking our guests, what kind of coffee did you drink this morning?
All right, so it's pretty lowbrow, I'm not gonna lie. So I was feeling pretty lazy this morning. I probably didn't get out of bed until about 9:30. So I just poured myself a glass of an Otis Big Gulp. So it's just oat milk with cold brew concentrate. But usually John makes coffee at home, so I drink the coffee he makes. I know, it's very shocking. Yeah, and typically when I'm, at the cafe, I just like to drink like a drip coffee, black. Kind of my go-to.
Exactly what I did this morning.
Nice.
Like a 20-ounce gigantic regular drip coffee. I don't know. You can beat it, but if you really want to wake up, that's gonna do it.
Well, shockingly, I drink like 6 to 8 ounces of it in the morning. Like, I don't even drink that much coffee. Contrary to popular belief, just because I work in coffee doesn't mean I drink a lot of it.
A lot of times, especially in the pandemic, you don't really have time to, because you're like, okay, I've got to go in the back. I've got to take off my mask. I have to wash my hands 4 times just to have a sip of coffee. It makes it a little harder.
Right.
Well, let's talk about the pandemic, because you are both coffee shop managers, employees, like you are on the serious front lines. I want to say, on behalf of all of the people still patronizing your businesses, a huge thank you to both of you for still being out there and keeping us caffeinated, but also keeping community happening in this major way. So I just want to let you guys loose and just free for all about pandemic talk.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, working in the pandemic, in a coffee shop, this has been the hardest time to work in customer service, like, that I've ever dealt with in my life. It's difficult for a lot of reasons. I mean, financially, as a cafe, like, you're not making a lot of money. Coffee shops don't make a lot of money, so there's a lot of trying to navigate. How do we just break even every month? That's kind of the goal. And just beyond that, working in a customer service environment with customers who are extra difficult because maybe they don't want to wear a mask, or maybe they want to talk to you about how you should just catch COVID because then you'll just be immune to it for the rest of your life, which isn't true. And that's why you should bring back inside seating. And there are a lot of decisions that we make as a business that a lot of people don't vibe with. But it's because we're just trying to protect ourselves, our staff, our community. So, I mean, it's a huge challenge.
And are you having to struggle with that, like, on a daily basis, like just sort of refighting the basics, which is all the employees and everyone who's inside the building should be wearing a mask at all times? Like, is that just like a line that you're constantly having to enforce?
I mean, Not exactly. That's the funny thing is a lot of people actually do comply and wear masks inside. Except, maybe a few times a week, some people are very annoyed that we ask them to put their mask above their nose, or they're pulling their mask down when they're trying to talk to us, which is the opposite of what you're supposed to do. And then they're like frustrated that we're asking them to please keep your mask on when you're talking or when you're by the counter or by the cash register. So I guess it does happen, not every day, but multiple times a week. And we do get some pushback pretty frequently from people about that.
Wow, that's that is not something that I've had to deal with. And with all the other things, just the fact that you're having to talk to people all day and have a mask on, and that that means you have to work twice as hard just to project your voice, which doesn't sound like exhausting, but really it is. And then after that, just the regular like breathing, feeling kind of bodily uncomfortable. I don't know about you guys, but for us, we have to have the doors and the windows open all the time with fans blowing all the time. So it's chilly. We're chilly a lot of the time. So all of that, and then on top of that, if I was gonna have to work with like testy customers, that would be a lot. And I definitely like, my heart goes out to people who are in other places that are having to deal with that. And it's probably even worse in other parts of the country than where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But in San Francisco, like our customers have been great. Nobody would even think about coming in without a mask on or that kind of thing. So that part's been great.
Right. Well, I think it's just the kind of the political environment where Otis exists is kind of in this weird zone where there's on one side there's a lot of more progressive folks that might be more willing to wear masks all the time and actually take safety precautions, and then on the other side of like the county line there are a lot of a lot more conservative folks that may not be into the idea of wearing masks and don't love when it's being enforced with them. So it's just like kind of teetering on that weird line with dealing with people from these different kind of parts of the political spectrum. So that's why I imagine that is not a thing in San Francisco.
No, it's not. It's not as much of a thing here. I mean, there's been like just a handful of times where I've had to ask someone to pull their mask up, but usually they don't realize it's written down. So we just kind of make a cute joke about it, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize my mask had, fallen down or whatever." But
I guess in the Castro, you have to remind people to wear pants more than.
that's right. That would be more likely. Yeah. Just I mean, as long as it's like just covering everything, with a little sparkly sock, it's allowed here. So
I love it. Tell us how long you've been a barista, Kristi. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah. Well, so I first started working in coffee as a barista in Los Angeles in 2013. It's when I got my first cafe job. And I had harassed this place for probably about 2 weeks, begging them to take me in for an interview. Like I called them multiple times a week and like kept going in and asking, hey, when are you guys gonna, like, I'm really interested in this position. Because I'd always just really loved coffee shops and being in cafes. I frequently solicited in this coffee shop in Montana where I grew up, where when I was in high school, I would hang out there, for hours a day. And I just loved that environment. So moving to LA, being like a broke 18-year-old, a cafe job sounded like the most fun thing to do. So I ended up getting that job, and I just loved making coffee and serving people and being a part of this like little community there. And going off from there, I ended up getting a job a few years down the line at a local roaster in LA, where I was hired to be the coffee educator. So I did all of their like retail and wholesale training for cafe staff and customers that they serve their whole bean coffee to. And then after that, I worked for Stumptown Coffee Roasters. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. Working on their national wholesale training team. And I was there for a few years, and I competed in barista competition. I was in the US Barista Championship for 2 years in a row.
What?
And yeah. I actually competed last year as an independent. So I paid my way out of pocket for that.
Where was that? Where did they have the competition last year?
Last year it was hosted in Costa Mesa, California.
And so was that for the whole national barista competition? Wow.
Yeah. So
Cool.
there's like multiple tiers of competition that you can go through. There's one preliminary that is kind of optional, where like anybody who's never competed before can, do this thing, and they give you all of the supplies, and you don't really know what coffee you're going to work with until you get there. But I did that the first year that I competed in barista competition. I did the preliminary, and I placed first in that. That was
Wow.
in Seattle. Yeah. And then went on to the regional competition, where I qualified for the National Barista Championship. And all of that first year, when I was working at Stumptown, so they sponsored my whole way through, which was awesome. And I was actually being coached by my boss at the time, who was this really badass woman named Leila Gambari. And she actually is the 2014 US Barista Champion. So I was like really pumped to have her as my boss. And I was like, I want to do barista competition because you can train me. And last year, it was like right after we moved from LA to Colorado, I had already qualified for the United States Barista Championship again, where I competed as an independent, and just did it on my own. So, yeah.
There's probably I think you may be the first person that we've had on this actually, besides myself, actually done one of these barista competitions. Could you walk us through, just for the listeners, what from the moment that you went out and started your competition moment to the end of your presentation, what did you do? What did that consist of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there is a lot that goes into it. It's so much work, like so much more work than you can imagine. And I've told people it's one of the most stressful and anxiety-inducing things that I've ever done in my entire life. Like, that's not a joke. So the preliminary competitions start earlier in the year, so roughly around the spring, summertime. So I think probably about June or so is when I recall those starting. There's not a lot of prep that goes into that. You kind of just show up and you follow the rules that are that they give to you in the handbook. In the kind of regional championship, there's a lot more preparation that goes into that. So the requirements are that you have to serve a whole panel of judges. You have to serve for that one, I think you have 3 judges. So 3 espressos, 3 milk drinks, and because they've done it differently the last 2 years. I had to like change it around. So I think the first year it was just 2 espressos and 2 milk drinks, or 2 espressos and 2 signature drinks. Okay, there we go. I got it. 2 signature drinks. So you basically have to give them like perfectly dialed in coffee, and explain what it tastes like very accurately using specific detailed descriptions.
And you kind of have to, everybody uses a different espresso, correct? So you have to explain like what your espresso is and why you chose that particular, most people probably do single source, right?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of people do single origin coffees for that. Yeah, so everybody comes with the coffee that they've procured from whatever company, whether it's a company that they work with or somebody that they're just sourcing it through. And you have to describe that coffee. describe what it tastes like, tactile descriptions, flavor descriptions. So they have these very specific kind of outlined ways that you're required to describe the coffee. So for the tactile qualities, you need to describe like body, texture, and finish. So like, what is it? Round, smooth, full, medium to light body, those types of descriptions. And then what kind of quality they're getting on the end of that experience. So does it have a lingering finish, a dry finish, a sweet finish, and etc. And then you have to come up with the most accurate possible flavor descriptions. So if your coffee, if you describe it as being like Granny Smith apple and 75% chocolate and let's say Darjeeling tea, the judges have to pick up exactly all of those qualities, or your score isn't going to be very good. And if it's a little bit off, like maybe somebody notices that there is a chocolate quality, but it's more like milk chocolate and not like 70% dark chocolate. So your description wasn't quite accurate enough. So that lowers your score. And then there's this whole performance aspect. So not only are you having to think about these very specific qualities that you're describing, you have to be performing. You're putting on kind of an act. So and that's kind of like my jam. Like I grew up doing theater, so it's kind of very much in line with what I've been doing for a lot of my life. But you're basically putting on this whole customer service act. But you can't interact with, like, the judges can't interact with you. You talk to them, but they're not allowed to say anything to you the entire time. And then they're also judging your technique. So making sure that you're wiping off all of your portafilters. There's no grounds inside of the portafilters. Your counters stay clean. You wipe your drip tray. You purge the group head. Like every single one of those things is counted, and you have someone hovering over your shoulder the entire time, watching every move that you're making.
And you probably have cameras on you that are like,
yes.
Yeah,
it's
a lot.
Pictures. So yeah, but when you get in it, like as soon as you hop on the stage, it's like you kind of have to just ignore everything that's happening around you and just focus on your routine and the speech that you've written, because you also have to memorize your speech, which is for the qualifiers is about, I think it was 10 minutes, and then for the US championship, it's 15 minutes.
What are you speaking about?
Your coffee, just talking about like what you're doing, why you're doing it. You have to have reasons for like everything. So yeah, it's a lot.
And do you choose, I know when I did it, but this was a long time ago, we chose whatever music accompaniment we wanted to go along with the presentation. Do you still do that?
Right, yes.
And you have to choose like what you're going to serve your specialty drink in, and and what was your specialty drink for the most recent one that you did?
So most recently, now let me see. Sorry, my cat is really wanting to hang out with me right now. So for this past year, man, this feels like such a blur. I honestly, 2020 was just so much. I can't even remember what I served at the barista chip.
Well, what was does one stand out that you've done like over the years at some point?
I was actually competing in a qualifying event in Denver a couple of years ago, and I did this savory coffee beverage that was based off of a Bloody Mary. So it actually I had like heirloom tomato juice that I roasted these tomatoes and I juiced them, and then added stuff like olive oil and pink peppercorns and a bunch of other kind of like savory things, salt, pepper, and combine that with espresso. And the espresso almost gave it this kind of like, what's the other ingredient that's in a Bloody Mary? Worcestershire sauce kind of quality.
Oh, wow.
It was a savory espresso drink. And it was maybe one of the coolest things I've ever done. Like, it was so good.
Wow, that's really cool.
Are you going to try that next, Austin?
I'm curious. So
I know
like
it sounds weird, but it was good.
and to the listeners, just kind of explaining what we're talking about as far as specialty drinks go with these competitions. So you have standard elements, which are you make the espresso, you make the milk drink, which in my case, when I did it, we had to make cappuccinos, little cappuccinos, but I imagine that all kind of varies, but that's standard for all the contestants, right? And then you come up with your specialty drink. And I think you choose your containers for all the beverages, right? Even the espresso. So that's all you bring that and supply that. So they are also judging you on your choice of what's the word, like not China, but what sort of
yeah, I mean, it's the presentation, I think, counts minimally in the grand scheme of things. Like it's not necessarily that the judges care what they're drinking out of. They just have to meet a certain requirement in terms of, like, for an espresso, it has to be at least I think 90 milliliter vessel. Like, you can't serve espresso in too small of a cup. And then for I think the milk drinks, it's just whatever vessel you want to use for espresso and milk. So you can do a cortado glass, you can do like some kind of small handmade ceramics or cappuccino cups or whatever. I don't think they're really paying as much attention to the specific vessel as much as they are the beverage that's inside of them, you know.
So
have you
I gotta ask you, when you competed, was that the year that Michael also competed from Jodie? I kind of remember him winning, or something.
He went. It was a few years after I did it. The year that I did it was like the first annual Southeast Regional barista competition. So it was probably, I'd say it was in like 2003, something like that, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that was like right around the beginning of when the barista competition started.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I mean, there were other regionals going on, I think, at that point, and then this was the first one for the Southeast, and it was held in Chapel Hill, North Carolina,
Our
that
homeland.
year. And I think Southern Season sponsored it, which is no longer a thing.
Oh, I know. It just closed like a couple months ago.
Yep. Have you ever been to the World Barista competition?
Oh no, I'm not there yet. The people that make it to the World Barista Championship are insanely good, and they put way more work into it than I think I did.
I wonder where that's going to be this year. I haven't kept up with that for a long time. It's kind of like the Olympics. It's like it's changing in a different country every year.
Right. Yeah, I think that it was, where was it supposed to be? They had to cancel all of last year's competitions, of course, like after all of this went down. I don't even know if they're going to be hosting barista competitions this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's not really something you can do on Zoom.
No.
How many people compete in these things? Is it hundreds, thousands? What's it like?
So in the preliminaries, I can't remember exactly how many, but there aren't as many participants in that. I think it might be like 50 or so. The qualifiers, I think so in order to do, let's see. Wow. Now, see, I've like haven't done it for a year and I forgot everything. I think at the qualifiers, they had maybe about that many people participating, 50 or 60. And then the Barista Championship is basically the top 18 from the qualifiers, the West and the East regional qualifiers. So I believe that's 36 competitors in the national championship. Yeah.
And the only regions now are just West and East, or are there?
I think they changed it to that because I recall there only being 2 regionals. Before they did like a handful, maybe 6 or so.
Yeah.
But they reduced the number of regional competitions. It changes all the time, so it's really hard to keep up.
You think you'll do it again?
That's a great question. I mean, I've gone back and forth. The first time I competed in the national competition, it was a nightmare, and I told myself I would never do this again, and then I did it again the next year. So we'll see. I honestly am a lot more interested in helping to coach other people to go to competitions. So that might be something that I would want to focus on next instead of being the one doing the competitions.
Is there somebody at Otis right now or in your circle that would like that coaching, like somebody who's ready to go?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can think of one person.
And and you know, they have to be a really good barista, but they also have to be the type of person who likes to put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
you have to be looking out for that person that you can imagine up there, you know, being outgoing enough and like wanting to put on a show for people as well. It's different from being a day-to-day barista, really.
Right.
You're kind of judging on two metrics.
Exactly. I mean, when judges are looking for, you know, somebody to represent as the barista champion, they are looking at folks in a way that, like, is this person the right person to represent our industry? Like, can they represent us by their skills and their kind of persona and etc. So that is a big part of it. Like, do you really want the judges to like you?
So when you do win, do they give you a new car or what are the
Okay.
responsibilities?
Actually, I think Volvo sponsored one of the barista championships, and somebody did get a new Volvo.
No way.
Yeah. But I've won, like, so when I won the preliminary competition a couple of years back, I think I got a bunch of just like coffee gear, like a grinder and some brewing equipment, some t-shirts, you know, that kind of thing.
So you really got to want to you just got to want to do it.
Yeah, well, for the national competition, a lot of the time they will sponsor somebody will sponsor a trip to Origin, so you could go to, like, you know, Colombia or something. Okay. So that's a good reason to want to place in the top contenders.
And if you place highly in the nationals, then I guess you win a trip to the world.
If you place first, yeah.
Just first. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
cool.
I don't know if I'm gonna get there ever. So I'm keeping my expectations low for myself.
Well, let's talk about Otis a little bit. That's your current coffee shop. Oh, well, let me also ask you this. I think you worked at Ozo too, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay, and we have friends in common, Jeff and Shalane. Have we discussed that?
No, I don't think so.
Here's what I think happened. Jeff and Shalane, they live near Ozo, but they come over to Otis because they're farming people, and they like to shop at the Jacks. And that is how I got to know them. They're hilarious. And if you saw them, you would know them if you know them. But anyway, she had told me about this kick-ass person she knew named Kristi over at Ozo. Went on and on about your eyes, and I'm sure it's you. I'm sure it is. I just haven't confirmed because I've been really happy to live in the mystery as I've gotten to know you. So sometime I'll bring you a picture of Jeff and Shalane, and we'll see if you do know who they are. But I think I knew of you even before I knew you because of them.
All right.
So I know you were at Ozo, which is in Boulder, and now you're over here at Otis. Is this your first management role in a coffee shop, or have you done that before?
Yeah, so yeah, this is the first time I've ever actually managed a coffee shop, and which is funny because I've been working in the industry for almost 8 years now. So the first handful of years I was just working as a barista, and then I just kind of propelled into that educator position. So I skipped everything that potentially could happen in between. I was never like a shift lead. I was never a cafe manager before. So this is the first time I've ever tried my hand at managing.
How's it going?
So far so good. I was kind of ready for this challenge, and I don't know if I've told you, but my partner John and I eventually want to own our own cafe. Like, so this is mostly like I wanted this job in preparation for like what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like, I think it's important for me to have this experience, and just kind of understand what the challenges could be like, especially in this time. So it's been hard at times, mostly fun, but hard. And it's a lot of work. And, sometimes I'm spending, 50, 55 hours a week at the cafe, and it's worth it to me. Mostly because of the staff. A big part of why I wanted to work in coffee was just why I wanted to work in coffee and eventually hold leadership roles in management and eventually hopefully own a cafe is so that I can be in control of how well people are treated. Because a lot of us come from backgrounds where we've worked at companies where we've been mistreated and taken advantage of. And that's something that I feel really strongly that I don't want people to experience. So like my goal as a cafe manager is to like, I work hard so the rest of my staff doesn't have to like suffer. And so that they can enjoy their jobs and be stoked to work there and not be upset with the person that's in charge of them all the time. And so far, I think it's going pretty well. They seem to appreciate my management style. I don't want kids, but I think I have a very maternal approach to like managing people, and I definitely just want everybody to be happy and treated well.
Did you get to pick your whole team, or were some of them already there?
I hired them all by myself.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So was that? So Otis was already running before you took over as manager, and then just slowly like.
So what had happened is the cafe actually shut down last year.
Gotcha.
So all of the staff had to move on and try to find other things to do. Because most of them decided to go back to school or were maybe already in school, so they were just preparing for the fall semester. And Otis kind of lost the bulk of their staff. And they were closed for about a month or so before I came on to manage the cafe. So that kind of gave me a clean slate to just start fresh and hire a whole new team of my choosing. And I feel like I did a pretty good job.
Great.
All the folks that work there are just like super kind, compassionate, really caring, awesome people. Like I just got so lucky.
Well, and you chose well.
But I got lucky with the right applicants.
Yeah.
You have a great staff when like every day when you go to work, you look to see who you're working with, and there's never that feeling of like, oh, I've got to work with so-and-so. This is going to be a challenge. When you're just like, oh, great, I get to work with, and then when you look at the staff and you're like, you feel that way about everybody. It's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah. And we're a pretty small crew. So it would be really challenging if one of us was kind of like not fitting in quite as well. So there's just five of us run that cafe.
That's exactly how Spikes is right now, because we're less hours than before the pandemic. So we only have 5 on right now. It's just a small core of people, and we've made it work.
Right.
Even through, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like, I'm usually like, I'm the type of person who likes to tough it out. And if I'm not feeling so hot one day, like usually I'll just kind of tough through the day. But now with COVID, if somebody has got like, all of a sudden they've got the sniffles, you're like, actually, I think you need to go home. because you don't know, I mean, there's a whole different threshold. So like you have to deal with like people being out unexpectedly on a small crew, and that kind of affects everybody.
Right.
I don't know if you guys are dealing with that at all.
Fortunately, we've all been keeping healthy. I think myself and all of my staff, we're all extremely cautious. I don't think any of us like hang out with anybody outside of our partners or families. So far, no one's gotten sick. I'm very grateful for that. It's still early, so who knows what could happen. But what I'm looking forward to is just the fact that there's a vaccine in sight, which should be available to us before the summer. So
it may be available this month.
Yeah,
for essential workers.
Yeah.
At least here in San Francisco, I know that depending on supplies of the vaccine, anyone out there who's listening who's a barista, check with your local authorities, because you might be able to get it soon. I think on Monday, Tuesday, you're going to be able to sign up for a registry here in San Francisco, and they'll text you when it's your time.
Yeah, I did that here in Boulder County as well. And I think they're still getting through this phase of trying to get folks over 70 or over 60. I think now they've extended it down to 60 and up. But once they get through the bulk of those folks, I think they're going to move on to essential workers, which I believe we're included in. So.
Another like slightly pandemic related thing I wanted to ask you about. And we were talking about, the negative experiences with customers earlier. And I just wanted to share my experience, and I wondered if it was the same for you, is that some of the customers that are part of the community have really come through during this time and have just been so amazingly supportive, and have kind of gone above and beyond to help keep the community afloat.
That's great, Austin.
Have you guys experienced that?
I mean, we definitely have had so much support from our regular customers. We have folks like Jodie comes in every single day, and we can always rely on this very specific group of our customers that will support us no matter what. And they're there for us. And I definitely have seen a lot of that, and that's really awesome. So even despite some of the negatives, we still have so many amazing people that come into our shop that keep us open.
And I kind of have felt like, because it's a time when we're just treading water, like that's the best you can do right now, is like just continue to exist so that you'll be there on the other end of this shitstorm. And so, you really do, for the people who come in every day, you're the people that are keeping us here. And it's a smaller group of people. It's kind of like it's a smaller group of workers. Like you have a smaller group of customers that are coming in every day that are really making it happen, like really making it possible. We've had some that have been especially generous with the tips too, knowing that like the baristas are kind of, not making as much money.
Yeah, during the holidays when we were super busy, people were extra generous with their tips.
Good. You're seeing fewer people like in volume, right, Austin?
Oh, definitely. I mean, our hours are much shorter, first of all. So there's that. And then because we only allow one party in at a time, it's usually one person. Sometimes it'll be a party of 2 or 3, that are all in the same bubble that will come in. But because of that, we're moving people through much more slowly as well. Which one side of that's been nice is it's given us time to really focus on that one person that's in front of you. And that means that we're, we ask more questions when we make the drink. We're really like tailoring things. We've actually gotten to know like a whole new group of people that maybe we're just sort of in and out and kind of got lost in the crowd before, that now like all the focus is on them. We've built a lot more personal relationships with each individual customer.
Yeah.
Do you at Spikes have any kind of online ordering? Because I mean, Otis has that, so I can order, and then when I arrive, my coffee is ready.
We do.
Yeah.
It hasn't really taken off. There's a few people who do it. For the most part, people come in and order in person. We've had a lot more mail orders where we like deliver coffee around the country, you know, like bulk beans and Spikes, you know, swag, t-shirts and mugs and stuff like that. But there's not that many. I think people prefer to order in person because we ask a lot of questions. Like, you know, if they order a chai, like, do you want it mostly spicy, mostly sweet? What kind of milk do you want? Like all these kind of things. And you can't really have that conversation when somebody orders online. So I think most of our customers don't prefer to order that way.
Got it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the experience for people going into a coffee shop is that interaction and that kind of personal the personal connection with the person that's serving them. So, but when Jodie orders online, she comes in and she talks to us for 10 minutes anyway.
Which is great. And then you're like, why did you order online? You could have just told us.
Because she leaves jokes for us every day.
I'm gonna tell you why. I order online because I include a joke every day for them.
We love.
Want to hear today's joke?
Oh yeah, what's it? What was it?
Why can you not see elephants hiding in trees?
Because they have really big trunks.
I love that answer. We'll go with it.
What was it?
Here's an alternative. Why can't you see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're so good at it.
Oh my gosh. All right, so there's two good answers to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that when someone else comes up with a joke an answer that is perfect, but it wasn't the one I was thinking. Like, that's the best energy. You're like, yes, two answers. All right. Well, shifting the focus away from coffee, personally, I want to know what inspires you? How do you unwind? What do you do for fun? Tell me a little personal nugget or two.
All right. Well, what inspires me? Lately it's been really hard to find things that are very inspiring. I'm not gonna lie. But what I will say, I really have been enjoying making things at home. So like my partner and I, we love food and beverage, and love to make things and taste things. So what we've done like over the past year or so, we've cooked a lot more, we've baked a lot more, we've made more like fun cocktails. So what we like to do is we like to make dinner and do something interesting. Like our thing early on was learning how to make authentic Thai food. We spent a month in Thailand and came back to the States and we're like, we need to learn how to make Thai food that's actually good. So we did that. And, you know, this week I made some homemade cinnamon rolls and gifted some to the staff. And we love making cocktails. And so that's like one thing that I think I really like to do in my free time. One other thing that I like to do in my free time, but this doesn't really help me unwind very much, it actually stresses me out more, is I like to talk about politics.
Yeah.
I spend way too much time reading and talking about that subject. And funny enough, I mean, in part because it's always been an interest of mine, and I actually almost was a political science major in college. So I don't think that like excitement and interest for politics is going to go away for me. So that's something I discuss with my friends and my partner all the time.
And if you have sort of like a little interest in politics, then this year has been like the crack cocaine of politics.
Oh my gosh,
like...
I know. Like the news is a drug right now. Like I can't stop taking it in, you know?
Yeah.
It's a lot. But that's one thing I do for fun.
Is it really fun?
Let's go with that. But then if I'm actually trying to unwind, like, and not focus on things that stress me out, like, you know, the last year, I really love to go camping and hiking. Those are definitely nice therapeutic activites.
Are you an overlander?
Me? No, John more so. He actually he got a Toyota 4Runner a few months ago, and he's been upgrading it rapidly. So he's got these nice tires on it, and has been just trying to like turn it into an adventure vehicle. He installed a lift on it himself, and I got him an air compressor for Christmas so that he could air down his tires. And
What is overlander? Is that like mud trucking?
no, not quite. I mean, it's like, people who have these like these chunky trucks and like 4Runners and Toyotas or whatever that is, a Toyota and stuff, but they like to go off-roading and
And a lot of times they have these it's a big rectangle that's bulky, and it looks like just a pile of fabric up on top of the rails on like a RAV4 or whatever SUV. And what they're doing with these vehicles is taking them far away from people, like out into the wilderness, and then just in a couple of snips and snaps and bippity boppity boo, it pops up on top of the roof of the car, and it's a tent.
We have one of those.
Oh, cool.
And it has a little ladder that you like, crawl up in and take it away so the bears can't get you. But you're like a self-contained hotel, and you can go wherever you want. You don't need a campground. You don't need a permit. Usually you just wherever you are. And there's a shit ton of wilderness in Colorado. In the state of Colorado, there's a bunch of nothing. So people love doing this. You can drive like maybe 2 hours away from Denver, Boulder, and be like in the middle of nothing. So
Out where that Valley View Hot Springs is.
Oh, you know about that Valley View.
I don't know about Valley View.
Oh, girl, you need to.
All right, well, we'll talk later about
It's
that.
a clothing optional hot springs, and it is awesome. And they have a bat colony there. So if you go like during the season that the bats are there, I'm not joking, it's like 250,000 bats. And you hike up, like there's somebody that'll take you up there. You hike to this area where the bats come out at night, and like, the 250,000 of them are going over your head and like, hunting in the sunset of the Valley View. It's amazing.
It's kind of, I mean, it's so remote. Like you drive, it feels like two hours in the middle of nowhere, like, just on open land. And then in the middle of that, after having driven 2 hours through the middle of nowhere, then you get on a dirt road and you drive another 30 minutes on a dirt road, like to the even farther into the middle of nowhere. And then you're at Valley View Hot Springs. And it's pretty crazy. There's like streams there that look like they would be like freezing cold mountain streams, but they're steaming. Like the streams are actually warm. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
We love primitive hot springs. That's actually something that John and I like actively look for. So good
the thing about this place is it's a land trust, and so if you buy into the land trust, you can go up there anytime. But if you don't buy into the land trust, like we did not, then you have to be like right there at 9:00 to be one of the 10 people they let on site. So it's hard to get in unless you're going totally off season, like on a random Tuesday. I think Austin, when you guys went, you went like like in October.
We were like right at the end of the season.
Yeah. So you got in pretty easily, but it's tricky to get in, but it's totally worth going. It's amazing.
All right.
Yeah. And there's a town near there that's called Crestone. And that is like a religious pilgrimage town of some sort. I think maybe a lot of cults are stationed there. I don't know, but it's kind of a weird place. There was actually a whole true crime podcast called Up and Vanish, and the second season was based around Crestone and the weird things that go on there. So I don't know. The whole area is pretty interesting.
It's also the place where the most UFO sightings happen in the U.S.
Oh,
I'm not joking. That's true.
Do a lot of psychedelics there or something?
Oh yeah.
Yes, 100%. Yes, definitely unqualified for sure.
I think there was a sign in Alamosa we saw at the garden center. It was like, "Stop doing the heroin now," like on the garden center. It's a special place. You should definitely go check it out.
All right. It's on my list now.
Oh my gosh. Well, as we wind down, I want to hear about your new rescue dog. Tell us about her.
All right. So a little backstory here. John and I moved into our house in May of last year. And once we moved in here, we were like, well, we have a yard. You know what would go really nice with a yard is a dog. So we started looking for a dog back in, I think we started our search in like September or so, and we kept getting just totally skunked. And every time I would reach out about a dog, all the rescues were like, sorry, that dog's already been adopted. And it was just like several months of searching for a dog. And I found this cute little doggo named Jodie on Pet Finder, and it said she was in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I was like, okay, that's not that far. It's like an hour 15 from here. So we reached out, and it was kind of like this weird back and forth with this rescue. And eventually the rescue was like, so she's actually in Lincoln, Nebraska. Is that okay with you guys? And we're like, no, but okay. I guess we're going to go drive to Lincoln, Nebraska to meet this dog we've never met before and just adopt her. So we kind of took this kind of a leap of faith, drove 3.5 hours to Lincoln, Nebraska to pick up this dog we've never seen before. And when we brought her home, she laid in my lap the entire way. And she's been the most perfect little angel that you got a little doggo back there, Jodie, I see.
Oh, I didn't realize Daisy was awake.
Oh yeah. She knew what we were talking about, and she had to come on.
I know. Yeah, so we took Junie home, and she has been getting along swimmingly with our cats. One of our cats has been like giving her affection and like nuzzling up to her and giving her headbutts, which is really crazy because we weren't expecting that to happen. And she's been learning commands really quickly. Like we've already taught her sit, lay, stay. She's learning how to spin around on command.
Nice.
She's such a quick learner. She's a little cattle dog mix, which apparently those dogs are awesome at just kind of being worker dogs, really. But she's super affectionate, and we're trying to get her to be chill in the house when we're not home, because we had a couple instances where she chewed up some of our belongings when we left the house, and now she's not doing that anymore. We just give her this little toy filled with cream cheese, and it does the trick.
Nice.
But yeah, it's been really awesome. And I can't recommend rescuing dogs enough. I think that rescue dogs kind of get a bad rap, but I'm not crazy about breeders.
You're not alone.
Not really my thing. So I'm all about giving animals a home that really need it. So animal shelters and animal rescues are the way to go. Adopt, don't shop.
You sound just like my husband. Anytime somebody mentions like they're getting a dog from a breeder, he just can't let it go. He just can't. He's like, you really shouldn't be buying that dog. There's so many dogs. I'm like, honey, just turn it down a little bit. He just can't. Look at the adopt, don't shop thing is just fierce in him. He also was yelling at me he was texting me. He was listening to our talk about Crestone, and he texted me and told me that it is one of the only places in the US that you can burn a body like outside, like in a funeral pyre.
Really?
So if you ever need to do that shit's legal.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Crestone. If I ever need to burn a body.
We're really talking this place up. I'm sure they're going to get lots of visitors just due to this podcast.
Probably. I'm going to go now. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I didn't tell you we do this, but I kind of remembered. We normally ask, like, what are 3 of your favorite coffee shops that you've ever been to? So do you have that kind of information top of mind?
Ooh, that I've ever been to?
Yeah, it can be anything, anywhere.
Man. So there is, hang on, I gotta look at the name of this place real quick.
Look at all that liquor back there. No wonder they like making cocktails. They have all the supplies.
We have our station.
Nice.
So when John and I were in Thailand, we went to a bajillion coffee shops. It was like one of the most fun things for us to do. And there was this little place that there, I think that was in, was Graf in Bangkok? Graf? No. Chiang Mai. So we went to Chiang Mai and we went to this little cafe called Graf. They have a couple locations, but they're these little teeny tiny hole in the walls. Like you could probably barely fit 15 people. I mean, like that's actually a very liberal estimate, but the original location probably could fit 5 people. But they're just the cutest, these cute little coffee shops. And they had this like just amazing coffee and these crazy craft, like cocktail inspired coffee drinks. They were like signature drinks, like for barista competition. That place was incredible. I would say that's one of my favorites. Definitely a very impressionable cafe. But if I'm talking about like in the States, let's see, one of my favorites, gosh, that's such a hard question.
I know.
So just the first thing that jumps into your mind.
First, I mean,
without thinking about it too much.
Yeah. So one of my favorite roasters, I will have to say, like in Colorado, is Sweet Bloom. Sweet Bloom is great. And then thinking about like back when I lived in Los Angeles, one of my favorite cafes to go to was this little place called Kindness and Mischief. It was in our neighborhood called Highland Park. And it's owned by this really sweet, like Filipino lady. She's actually a friend of ours. And she's one of the nicest people I've ever known. And it's this cute little cafe.
What a great name too. I love it.
Kindness and Mischief.
I love it too.
Yeah.
It was just like they hired really nice people and the coffees were good and everybody there was super awesome and sweet. And honestly, like I go to cafes a lot more for the vibe and for the people, sometimes than even for the coffee, even though like I like really awesome, good coffee. And they, don't get me wrong, their coffee's good, but like their people are excellent. So those are maybe my top 3. Graf, Sweet Bloom, and Kindness and Mischief.
Those sound like really good memories, all of them. I like that Sweet Bloom too. I don't know if they're based in Denver.
Yeah, they are.
They are. Yeah, they're really good. Austin, next time you come this way, I'll take you to the
Yeah.
Sweet.
Can't wait to get that shot in the arm and I'll be on my way to visit you.
I know. It's so sad. It's so sad that we haven't traveled. You know, we all like to get out and do stuff.
I know, it's like the first year that I haven't been on a plane.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's a weird time. Well, as we end this episode, I want to thank you again, Kristi, for being with us. And I also want to thank our listeners for joining. We want to hear from you guys. So if you know a barista or coffee industry expert that needs to be on the show, let us know. Write to us, tell us your thoughts and their questions about coffee. Our email address is info@baristaunfiltered.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and YouTube. I'll upload this video onto YouTube. Thanks to everybody who has subscribed to us on YouTube. And if you haven't, get over there and go do that. We have podcast patrons through Patreon that I also want to thank. These folks have stuck with us all through this year of not producing a damn thing. And
we're back.
We're back and we're thankful for your support. So you guys are amazing. If you want to join the cool kids that support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/baristaunfiltered. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
Y'all be good and stay caffeinated, friends. Bye.